2, 3. Is that okay?
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Zainab Uzoma. I work with Nigeria Police Radio. I would like to ask, in the light of the insecurities around us, especially in the north and the northeast, you know, women are very vulnerable. Women and children are very vulnerable in when they're being attacked. What's ASIWAJU's what's in his manifesto concerning insecurity and concerning securing women and children in these areas? Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab.
Good day, everyone. My name is Honorable Abe Upupan. A lot of women are into businesses, and right now Forex is really high. So I want to find out what the ASIWAJU administration would do to crash the Forex to help women in business to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's be gender sensitive and allow the gentleman after her. Is that okay?
After me. It's all right, sir.
No, what I'm saying, after you, then you can round up, because he had his hands up since. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Aisha, Honorable Aisha Gwajabiamila. I'm quite passionate when it comes to women empowerment and youth engagement, and which is why I run a foundation that encompasses both. I would like to emphasize on the importance of reorientation when it comes to our youth. The manifesto actually talks about 130 million youths within the age of 15 to 35. I know Baba ASIWAJU is working greatly on that. But I want to, while I was coming to Nigeria at the airport, I had a huge argument with a lot of people from diaspora, because some people said, what are they going to do in Nigeria? What are they coming to do in Nigeria? And I said something. I said, we are the government. Every little, effort that we put in makes a big difference. And then we eventually got down to the talk about, someone said, as soon as you give birth to a child in hospital in Nigeria, that child is already corrupt. Someone said that. And I said, putting in place like trainings to change the mindset of our youth would go a long way. An average youth believes that, they want to make money overnight. So my question is there anything that has been, that's part of the scheme? Is there any scheme that will be put in place, like i.e. training session, etc., to change the mindset from the grassroots, like reorientating our youths so we can have leaders of greater tomorrow? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the last question. Thank you.
So, can I talk now?
Should we allow him?
Women.
Ladies in the house, should we allow him?
Oh, thank you
we are very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Professor Ibrahim Abdullah Madugu, and I just want to lay emphasis on certain issues. I know it has been touched in the manifesto or in Hope Renewal, but again, it's very important to lay emphasis on this issue. The issue is about job creation. And when you talk about job creation, we have assets that were privatized during the PDP era. They were privatized, and most of these assets they are huge sources of job creation for the teeming youth of the country. And most of these assets are under lock and key. They are not producing, they are not being used. And then how do you intend to increase your GDP? How do you intend to cut down on the workload on the teeming population looking for jobs? A typical example I will give you is in the mineral, iron and steel sector. That's the Oshogo Steel Mill, the Oshogo Steel Mill, the Josi Rolling Mill, the Katsina Rolling Mill, the Ajakuta Rolling Mill. These are huge source of job creation, and to reduce, it may interest you to know that the federal government imports what 3 $3 billion worth of steel annually. $3 billion worth of steel annually from overseas, from the other government. So if you look at it now, they said the Niger Bridge has been completed. Do you know, can you imagine the amount of steel works that went into the construction of that bridge across the river Niger? That is just only one aspect. The amount of pipes being used for the AKK project, they are all imported. Then how do you want to cut down on how do you want to increase your job creation? But these are a road, the emphasis should be laid. Thank you. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can see that Prof is really a prof. Thank you very much, Prof. We've had some questions on the economy, we've had on infrastructure. There will be other panels that will be handling some of, I'm sure specifically, these questions, but the women will take what they can. We still have one on energy, we have on a few other panels. So, Prof, you still have to wait behind for the whole day for that question to be specifically answered, because we have another section on infrastructure. But in the meantime, I'll start from Mr. Kadibo, your take on some of the questions that have been put forward.
Thank you. I think a lot of the questions raised here today are quite germane. Nigeria is on the move again. We're moving from where we are now to somewhere better. For every year, we hope to do better as a country. It breaks my heart to hear you say that when a child is born in Nigeria, that child is corrupt. That is so, so sad, because some of us were born here in Nigeria, and I don't think corruption is our name or DNA. Yes, you may have a family, you have children, but there's really so much that you can do outside of the home. A lot of the education we get should really come from home. So we as parents, we have a fundamental role to play in raising our children. What we give the children at home before they go out to school is definitely going to guide them, such that even when they come across certain vices in school, they'll be in a position to know this is not correct. So as parents, we have a major role to play in raising our kids and putting them right. For me, we've talked about ASIWAJU as a man, as a leader. I also would like to share an experience of Senator Oluwemi Tinubu as a woman who is very passionate. I listened to her speech and I was very excited because I know that she is actually talking to Nigerian women. I was in the 7th Senate with Oluwemi Tinubu, so I know a bit about her. I have a personal experience as to the woman called Oluwemi. I remember coming to work in the chambers one day, very upset because my television in my bedroom had broken. And I came in very long-faced. And she came up to me and she said, "Marjorie, what is the problem?" And I gave her this my background story. And she said, "Is that why your face is like that?" I said, "Yes, that's why my face is like that. I'm upset." And that was it. But later that afternoon, she sent her PA to me with an envelope. I was surprised. I thought it was an invitation to some event. I opened it, and it was a little note, "Marjorie, get yourself a new television with a check." I was so touched because I didn't expect it. But that is Oluwemi Tinubu for you. She's a woman of words. She's very passionate about anything she does. So I have my own personal experience, and I know, listening to that speech, if she has given her word on a 35% representation for Nigerian women, that is what Oluwemi Tinubu will definitely do. Thank you.
Over to you, Stella.
I think
Answer some of the questions.
to actually testify of who are candidates and maybe the spouse, who truly they are. Some days you won't believe it. I call her mommy. She'll just pick up the phone and call me, "Stella, how are you doing?" Hope everything is going on well. Hope you are seeing what we are doing. You know, what do you think about yesterday's rally and all of that? That's the kind of leader that we have in Mrs. Oluremi, Senator Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu. And I think Nigeria will be excited, you know, to have her husband sworn in on the 29th of May. I'll touch most of the questions answered. I'll start from the appointment. At a forum yesterday, or on Sunday, permit me to be exact, ASIWAJU said something. Monkey they walk, babu they shop is no more a slogan for us. Monkey they walk, monkey they shop. He said if it means us to kill the babu, we will kill him. That was his words. And I'll tell you what that means. I've been hearing people who say go and vote. That is not what we should leave here with. Go and mobilize votes for the victory. In 2019, let me start with 2015. I just moved in December 2014 to the APC. In the South state, it was a bad case. Everybody wanted a Southern whatever president. You remember that time. But I saw more beyond that because I was supposed to be focal person for Shopee, and I didn't like how funds were mismanaged and all of that. So I moved on and came to the APC. In 2015, to cut the long story short, of the 44,000 votes that came for the APC in Delta State, I came to Abuja with my pink sheet of 22,000 votes. Pink sheets. If you know what that pink sheet means, you know that you have to be at that polling station to ensure that vote comes out the way it was in that tense situation. I'll give you another example. In 2019, my House of Reps member didn't even know how he won the election. He got his result. He was at home. I went to give to him. Same with the Deputy Senate President, Senator Ovoamo Agege. So not because you're a woman or you're a professional, you should just go and cast your vote and go home. No. You should mobilize the vote, follow the vote, count the votes, follow the collation officer till the vote is, announced at the last collation point before you go home. So young man, walk. People are looking at you. People are seeing what you do. So when you walk, you go chop. So gone are the days whereby they will come and sell appointments. It will from diaspora and speak English and open laptop. It would accept their policies, but the people to drive it will be those of you out here, those of us out here that are working. Because we're working with somebody that has gotten the experience. He's led people across all forums, and he knows what leadership is, and he's going to bring it to fruition in 2023. Thank God we're already in 2023. So we hope we will work and get the win for the victory. I'll talk on the maritime. If you go through the manifesto, it's clear you want to see more women with the technology and all of that aspect. Would have new women on board in the maritime sector. And I'm sure we also have policies and programs where government will be tapping from the MPA, NIMASA funds and all of that. That is all parastatals, ministry, appointment and legislative. And it's not space. Farmers, herdsmen, clash, security. The truth about it is this, some of us have the school of thought. I'm not speaking for the candidate, I'm sharing my own view. That the best way to curb the insecurity in this country is economic empowerment. If everyone is empowered, if everyone has a job, if everyone has something to do, we would reduce drastically the number of crime rates and all of that we're having in the country. And I think that is what this manifesto has shown to us, that the government will continue with what our president has done and encourage more economic empowerment for our people. Somebody was talking about FX and job creation, so I'll deal with that. Our country is an import-dependent country. Thanks to the coming in of President Muhammadu Buhari, we've been able to shift that curve and, dilute it to a reasonable, level of supporting exports. And so when the dependence on FX is high, definitely you'll see all of the black rates and all of that. But what Bola Ahmed Tinubu's manifesto is saying here is trying to create an enabling environment for more foreign direct investment, more investment whereby you and I will own businesses with improved power. We can actually produce what we eat, produce what we wear. You're wearing cotton bought from Switzerland and all of that. In Funtua, you can grow this cotton, get them rolled, get Kanu textile to produce, and we wear them here. The pressure on our effects for only textile alone, if we cut it by 75%, we'll be shouting for, FX rates and all of that. And the women here who are in business will be able to do perfectly well because you have your product at cheaper rates, and so you can sell it at competitive rates in Nigeria and outside the shores of this country. And I'm sure that's what Bola Ahmed Tinubu stands for. Privatization, somebody spoke about that. Yes, you've talked about it, but let me tell you the truth, because I was one of the members of the late Chief of Staff, rest in peace, his committee on revitalizing some of the sold assets. We visited most of these assets. Nigerians have no reason to vote back the PDP. We have no reason to vote back the PDP. You ask me why. All of these things were sold to their friends. Do you know what they did? They stripped the most quality assets in all of this place, exported them out of the country, and locked the gates. That's why the businesses, the industries are not working. So stop believing that maybe government will come and pump the money back there. I know, going from this manifesto, that what Bola Ahmed Tinubu stands for is that he would create the enabling environment that will bring the real-time investors like he did in Lagos, bring them into this country, support you and I with concessionary loans that will make us owners of these industries, owners of better managed industries that would employ our people. Buhari is already doing that. President Buhari is doing that across sectors. But I can assure you that continuity in the APC has come to stay, because we have won already, by the grace of God, the elections on February 25th. And so this new government will support Nigerians to own the businesses, support Nigerians, support the economic growth by ensuring that every foreign direct investment that comes here is secured, will create jobs for our people, and would also increase our GDP as a nation. So I think I've dwelt on that. And the coal, somebody spoke about coal. I want to address that, please, 1 minute, because I have some young people here. I remember at one of the fora, he said, in Edo State, we'll get these young people to produce chips and all of that. And Generation Z, whatever they call themselves, wake up. He didn't say plantain chips. He said chips that work with your electronic phones, chips that work with your electric cars and all of that. That's future metals. We have that everywhere in Nigeria. In fact, 23 states have huge deposits of future metals, from iron ore to all of what you need to power your batteries, lithium and all of that. They're in Nasarawa, in Abuja, in Kogi, Ebonyi. You have all of that in large quantity. And it will shock you that Nigeria has even one of the best deposits in the world. And what did he mean by that? And like I said earlier, he's living the future. He knows the future. And he wants to make Nigeria part of the future of the global economic space. So what about that, sir? Coal, we'll have so many arguments on coal, but he's already letting you know that he would also manage what we have in coal and also ensure that we invest in solid mineral exploration as a country, produce the chips here, and export it to the world. Taiwan today is still an annex to China because of what they are producing, chips manufacturing. And so, Abba has said that we will do it here in Nigeria. Think about it, it's a $1 trillion investment in the world. The future metals is $1 trillion. And I did a calculation, let's look at 30% living in this country in the next 3 years. That is over 1 million jobs every year, assured for our young teeming Nigerian youths. So vote Tinubu, vote APC if you want a better future. Thank you.
I think we're running out of time for the second session, but I'll quickly have Asabe your answers, and then
okay, thank you very much. Let me quickly run this sentence. On the appointment that you said that normally party is being consulted for appointment. That is true, and that has been the practice. But my Hausa people say a blessed Friday is being seen from Wednesday. Like I said,
Mrs. Tinubu's speech this morning is like a policy statement because she's speaking for somebody that she knows very, very much. If she has assured the women, or he has assured the women of 35% of opportunities or inclusion into the governance, and she has stood in for the youths, that youths are going to be carried along in appointments and other things in MDAs. Women alone will take that some percentage. How many percent will remain? So I believe women that will just do something blindly, I believe they will go by a formula. So please just pray for APC to come back, and inshallah it will be well with the youths. Their word is their bond. Then women in maritime sector, from the speech you can see that the incoming administration is going to support women in science areas. Hitherto, women are being scared, or they are being given away, or they think that some certain jobs dominated professions. We don't see women because right from time we are not allowed to go into it. Medicine, engineering, all these hard courses, women are not allowed. So this is the result we are seeing. We have many women reading medicine, women engineers, women lawyers, and so on and so forth. So maritime is also part of it, and the incoming administration, inshallah, is going to do more on what we have on ground. The security that most of the criminals will have today are youths. Definitely there will be youths because the youths are the ones that have the strength, and they are being neglected. Every house has at least 3 to 5 graduates. None, even in some families, none is employed. What do you expect? They have to go and fend for themselves. Has handled that adequately. Job creation is the secret. When people are employed, when our youth are employed, definitely sure it is going to change the narrative.
Thank you.
Then infrastructure continuity. From Baba has laid a very, very sound foundation on infrastructure. And the incoming candidate is a guru in infrastructure. So it's going to be a continuous thing, inshallah. Then Madam Stella has answered very well on cash and forex. On forex, I will not go into that. Then the next thing is our youth, that to change their psyche, those our youth that have already derailed, definitely sure there are going to be a lot of trainings and orientation to change their psyche, and on reviving our steel mills across the nation. We all know that if our incoming candidate is promising so many job creation, this is one of the ways now. If he doesn't revive our industries that have been closed for long, areas are going to be addressed, and that is how employment will be generated, and by this way everybody will be busy and have something to do and fend for him or herself, and that will change the whole narrative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Nicholas. Thank you. Amazing stuff there.
Yes, thank you for such brief.
Is that possible to make it brief?
Yes, I'll do my best to make it brief. Very quickly, like I usually say to men, if your wife tells me you are a bad man, it doesn't matter what you do outside or what we see you do, we believe her. If Oluremi has told us that the husband is going to stick to his word, I think we have to believe her. Not just she said it, it has made it happen too. First of all, the question of youth appointment, let me first say that we are all members of the APC as one family. Let me fall back to what I said as regarding our candidate, be a bold man, a courageous man. He's a man that will stick to his words, and so be rest assured that he's going to stand by his word, and whoever he deemed fit to be appointed, he will do so. Now, in terms of the marine, women not being, first of all, we have to now encourage women to get into marine engineering. You're not just going to throw women into the marine sector when they are not equipped. So it has to start from our schools, where they are encouraged to go into marine engineering and all sorts of that. The issue of security, please, I wanted to read through the manifesto, and I was glad that he made it number one, because that's the first responsibility. The number one job of any government is to protect the lives and property of the citizen. And seeing that that is number one, it tells me our candidate knows exactly what is going on. And it talks about technology in that manifesto, talked about equipping our police department and our force. That is very key to ensuring that the country is safe. And if I tie it to the question of women being safe, women being secure, I think we need Nigeria to be secure as a country. if you go through the manifesto, it is well detailed what our candidate wants to do. Lastly, in terms of training the youth, I'm glad when I read through the manifesto, I see that when our candidate talk about empowering women, empowering the youth, buying bikes for the youth, that's what some people call empowerment. I think it's very insulting when I see government do this and call it empowerment. That's left for NGOs to be doing. The government is supposed to create an enabling environment, empower the people. That's why we talk about appointment. We also talk about loan and credit system, so that we'll be able to be empowered. Buying machine and grinding machine and bike for youth, that is not empowerment. That's insulting to our destiny as young people. In this manifesto, what ASIWAJU calls empowerment is to make sure that youth will go to school, is to make sure that even the private sector is encouraged to employ people, is to make sure that the banking sector, they understand how to give loans, not just looking for collateral. To me, that's what I call empowerment, and that's what we should embrace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On that note, I just round up by saying that what all of you have said, government does not create jobs as such, but government has to create an enabling environment for jobs to be created. ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done that before. He will do it again and continue with positive things of the administration, as he did in Lagos. When some people argue that he didn't build Lagos, he started what we call positive continuity. From him to the next governor, to the next governor, the beat on the policy that was created at the summit, the summit that took place in Akodo. Dele Alake is here. So it's about positive continuity, which ASIWAJU guarantees. And then you talked about chips. And that's why the issue of education is important. For instance, he said they will recharge Lake Chad. Youth on social media does not know what it means to recharge Lake Chad. And they started laughing. Even the so-called stars amongst them. It's a shame. So rural education is key. And so is reorientation. And reorientation is about the kindness, about us. What are our values? What do we believe in? As mothers, what kind of children are we raising? We see Seyi Tinubu going around campaigning, showing leadership to the youth. What kind of children are we raising? When you talk about orientation, it's about us, not him. When something goes wrong, you will say, Tinubu Buhari, what society are we raising? What matters to us? Money, money, money. Corruption, corruption, corruption. So let us think. Change begins with me, begins with you. And when Bola Ahmed Tinubu becomes president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it also honors to behave properly and ensure that Nigeria takes its place in the Committee of Nations. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing experience. And finally, the woman, our incoming first lady, I'll say a word about her. You talked about her. When I was going to politics, after I mentioned daily because we were friends, every time I'm saying, I want to do this. But when I decided, the first person I went to was Chief Ms. Oluwemi Tinubu. I said, no, I want to do politics. Let's go to my husband. And the rest is history. So we have a fantastic president, a wonderful first lady, a wonderful first family, and we know that family values do matter. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you. Chief Audrey, it's nice to see you again. Good evening, sir.
Can we put our hands together for this very insightful session? The photographer, kindly stand in front so that the photographer can take a picture of the CEO of Nigerian Diaspora Commission, Gabriel Bewa, for leading the conversation. Thank you, and thank you so very much. Thank you. Let's give them a rousing round of applause, please. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Would like to let you know that His Excellency, our beacon of light, our hope keeper, the presidential candidate of the APC, the ASIWAJU of the universe, will soon be here with us. We would like that we have word that he is on his way. Kindly remain seated where you are as we go into the next session, which is the session on agriculture. Your Excellencies, we had in this particular session Felix Nicholas, and of course the very eloquent Stella Okotete, the ED of Neximbank, and my most respected Senator Marjorie Chubal Kadigo, who was here with us, and Dr. Sabeh Valeti Bashir, who also contributed. We'd like to thank you all. At this point, I'd like to make a very special introduction as we go into agriculture. First, I'd like to tender unreserved apologies. Our elder statesman, very urban, a man who is well-read, he is a playwright, he is eloquent, he is eclectic, Chief Audu Innocent Open. He is a political colossus. He has served as Deputy Speaker in the Benue State Legislature as way back as 1979. He was a Federal Minister of Communication in 1982. He is very insightful because, again, he has held the portfolio of the Minister of Steel Development in, well, so many years back, actually. And then again, Triple Honorable Minister of the Federal Republic. He was also the Honorable Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development from 2015 to 2019. Minister of Agriculture at that time, he was one who championed the concept of technology-based agriculture. He's done so much in the agricultural sector, just like we would always say, the ASIWAJU Manifesto is an encyclopedia of good governance. Each time you talk about Chief Audu, he is an encyclopedia of agriculture. It's my singular honor and privilege to invite to speak to us on agriculture and rural development in the ASIWAJU Manifesto. Can we please make welcome for Chief Audu Innocent Obe? Thank you. Please welcome him more appropriately. Thank you so very much. You're most warmly welcome.
Excellency, former Governor of Bauchi State, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've been quite a bit into time. I'll try to be very, very quick. We're talking about the manifesto prepared by glad that when I go through it, it is a philosophical outcrop of the existing policy of agriculture under President Muhammad Buhari. Nigeria indeed is an agricultural nation, and agriculture took us from the First Republic comfortably until the disruptions came in government and the discovery of oil. And oil was a blessing, but also a curse, unfortunately. There was a time when Nigeria accounted for 44% of the total palm oil production in the world. Nigeria did. Today we are down to 4%. 4%. In those days, we produced cocoa. We exported a lot of ginger. We are number one, in fact, number two in the world in sorghum. And we were strong. And a much better organized society than we are now. So people ask, was the oil a blessing or a curse? It depends on how you look at it. But here we are degenerating so quickly that we began to spend $5 million a day importing rice. $5 million US a day on rice, about the same amount on wheat, sugar, and milk. So what happened to us was that we were beginning to send everything we had to other countries to buy food and bring it here. I just heard a figure recently which scared me a lot. I am told that 10,000 babies are born every day in this country now. 10,000 children a day. And the death rate is 1,200. So every month, 3 million new mouths are ready to be fed. And yet, our agricultural output is declining. Compare us to Holland, a country the size of Benue State, with a population of 17 million. Holland's agricultural export is $100 billion per annum. I'll come to an issue you are told by two major institutions, and I'm going to talk that we should not subsidize agriculture. But they do. Every cow on a farm in Europe, in the EU, gets €6 of subsidy per day. But the cows are in ranches, they produce milk, Holland exports with flowers and fruits, and makes more money from it than sometimes we do even from oil. What are the schools? So 20 years is not very far from here. ASIWAJU agenda on agriculture. Especially because he is determined to enhance agricultural productivity, to grow agro-industry, to increase food security, and increase farm incomes for the farmers, especially the women. Most people do not know how much women participate. In a typical village, the woman wakes up in the morning, rushes to the stream to fetch water, comes back, goes to the farm, comes back. Sometimes she barely has time to prepare the children for school, and then she returns from there and goes to the market to do her trading. And if she comes back late and doesn't prepare food for the husband, she sometimes gets a beating. But we are in very serious trouble because I'd like to warn that if we do not wake up from sleep and this population hits 450 million, it will be impossible to sit in a hall like this for 10 minutes. Number two, the local government system has collapsed. I don't know how many of you have gone home recently. The local governments are not working. Every month allocation, 200 million, 220 million. What is done with the money, nobody knows. You can't see market stores being repaired for the poor women selling their little commodities to sit under, and yet they have to pay rents. Why would we allow a system like that to happen? You are told that local governments are supposed to have autonomy. They do nothing, but they tell you they are paying salaries, 200 million primary education. All the young men who will be making the yam heaps for us to plant yams have gone to school. And then shortly after that, the coup of 83. But recently, when I came back to the Ministry of Agri, we designed it can do 2,000 heaps a day. But it has to be hooked onto a tractor. It is not in wide use. It has to be. Because Nigeria is the world's largest producer of yams. Unfortunately, Ghana is the biggest producer of exporter of yams. They don't do 10% of the yams we produce. But for some reason, Nigeria has not been able to export yams because we have no facilities for exporting yams. If you're going to send yams abroad, You put them in containers. The temperature in the container must not be higher than 15 degrees Celsius because the yam is a vegetable. But now China exports yams. And their yam is so funny looking, it's like an exaggerated walking stick. We have the yams. The yams rot. We are not exporting. With the yams have started rotting. And Nigerian headline newspapers, Nigeria exports rotten yams. Shame. I ran the Ministry of Agri. I didn't run the ports. So when one agency is unable to link up with the other and there are failures, Nigeria fails. Now, the ASIWAJU manifesto is very well designed. A few suggestions we would like to make are the following. Particular parts of the country should specialize in particular crops and excel in them. Not too many people know that when we were the leaders in cocoa in Africa, that even a state like Abia was a cocoa producer. Michael Okpara emphasized cashew production, not because of the cashew nut alone, but because the cashew tree was a very strong defender of the soil against erosion. I am a cashew plantation owner. And even though I'm on a slope, there's no erosion because the roots are partially out and partially in the ground and they stop water flowing at high speeds. We can do coffee in Plateau, Adamawa, and Taraba, just like they do in Ethiopia. And special support has to be given to women and young men and women. How many of you on your own, without waiting for an appointment from government, would like to start a plantation of your own? After the coup of 86 or 83, Odumegwu Ojukwu was a classmate. So was Alex Ikweme. We were there, we were released, I got home. I decided to plant cashew nuts. And the elite who knew me were laughing at me. Said, he didn't make money as minister. Is it cashew that will save him? I planted 50 hectares of cashew. The local farmers came to me and I gave them nuts because I went as far as Brazil to get improved nuts. And the plantation in Brazil is owned by a Nigerian, a man called Ayorosiji. Ayorosiji was a minister in the First Republic. After the coup, he left Nigeria, bought land in the state of Ceará, in a town called Fortaleza. It is the largest cashew plantation on planet Earth. And I got nuts from him. The Brazilian government didn't like the large size nuts being exported, but I must confess, there's no customs man here. I smuggled a few. Planted the cashews. The local farmers in my community came to me and I gave them nuts. I tell you today, my local government is the largest producer of cashew in Benue, and the farmers make 300 million naira per annum selling cashew nuts. Even Julius Berger is going to cashew processing now in Nigeria. So we will have to focus on agriculture very seriously, because if we don't feed well, there will be no democracy. Democracy thrives on a full stomach like a large army. We can do it. We overtook Egypt as the largest producer of rice in Africa. And last month, the Egyptians came here and told us to grow rice and export to them. So we've cut down the import of rice. We are cutting down the import of palm oil. We should cut down the import of wheat. But we must change our strategy. Irrigation. Rain season farming is very risky because of the flooding. we must also revive the river basins. ASIWAJU wants to restore the marketing boards. Good idea. But they were abolished in 1974 by the military because farmers complained that the marketing boards were cheating them. So a structure has to be put in place to make sure that farmers are not cheated by the marketing boards. Then we can improve quality. Take Zobo, hibiscus. 2018, we exported Zobo worth $35 million. The demand for Zobo is over $110 billion per annum. Everywhere in the world they want Zobo, but you must produce it to a certain quality. So I will round up very quickly by making an appeal, which I'll present to the pointers now. How can you? And finally, let me warn you, all of us, all of you much younger people than myself, beware of the kind of advice that some foreign organizations give us. Racism is reality. Not everybody wants you to succeed. Not everybody wants Nigeria to make it. There are people who believe that there's so much wealth of solid minerals and other resources here that they will never allow us to stabilize. Racism is an ideology. There are people who believe you are inferior and there's nothing you can do to convince them until you take a stand. We import too much. And the Tinubu administration has to rationalize imports, cut down on trivialities we can do without, save our foreign exchange, increase the value of the naira, and make us produce those things that we need. A lady spoke of textiles just now. What I'm wearing here is 6 meters. Those in Agbada, 12 meters. Imagine how much money is going out of this country now to China to bring textiles. And yet we had Kaduna, Aba textiles, Apapa textiles, Kano textiles. SAP destroyed everything. And when the World Bank and the IMF were forcing us to adopt SAP, Professor Adebayo Adedeji warned us not to. Pius Okigbo, they are all late now, warned us not to. The Shagari administration had refused to take the loan. Chief Awolowo openly congratulated Shagari for refusing to devalue the naira. They kept battering us. 2 American professors, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Professor of Economics in Columbia University, and Professor Paul Krugman, Professor of Economics in Harvard and Nobel Prize winner, warned us that SAP was the worst assault on Africa since the slave trade. The effect of SAP is what we're seeing now. Excessive costs, criminality among the youth, and nations collapsing. Ghana is in trouble, we're here, South Africa is in distress. There's hardly any sub-Saharan African nation that's comfortable. We were told, do it this way, we did, go that way, we did. We had no courage to say, sorry, we can't do this. A man like Bola will say no, I believe. So I'll round up because questions will be asked. We have to be very serious indeed. Because I read French in school and I read French history. Some of what is happening now, especially in the shortage of food, the cost of living, and the unhappiness in the rural areas, is what led to the French Revolution in 1789. The devaluation of currency every month for a period of over 20 years. Exactly what we've been doing. We cannot afford to keep devaluing our currency. The answer is to use tariffs to prevent importation of trivial goods. Is red wine, white wine a priority? Is champagne a priority? Yet you go to a wedding in some places and they only drink champagne because they are very rich. how much tax does that guy pay? If you drive a Rolls Royce into India at the port, the duty is 400%. If you are an Indian coming back with a Rolex on your wrist, you better hide it. The tax is heavy. Those who indulge in these things pay the smallest tax. And they are causing us the pain that we're going through. So our children are all over the streets. And finally, I will advise ASIWAJU, we have to create a Department of Rural Development, very much like DIFRI. If we don't fix the local governments, there will be no peace in the cities. Thank you very much.
I believe he deserves more, please. Can we give him? I said to you, just like we refer to the ASIWAJU Shatima Manifesto as an encyclopedia for good governance, when you listen to Chief Audu Obe speak, you know he's an encyclopedia not just of agriculture. You know, they say the words of our elders are words of wisdom, and the wise man hears and just simply gets wiser. His presentation is so sterling and really heart-probing. In 1958, when Brazil won 58 in football, in Brazil, they decided to declare Pelé, the one who just passed on, they declared him as a national treasure because they wanted to ward off those that wanted to pay a lot of offers, lots of monies from Europe to take him. They wanted him to remain in Brazil. Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, sir, you are for us a national treasure. Please, let's give him a rousing round of applause. Chief Audu Obe. The topic is ASIWAJU's roadmap to agriculture and food security. We're going into the agriculture panel discussion, and I would like to invite Professor Akin Oyerinde, the Dean Faculty of Agriculture, University of Abuja, to please. So like to. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Agriculture, and we'll be looking at agriculture, the Tinubu roadmap to agriculture and food security. I'd like to ask my first question, and I'd like Professor, we've listened to everything that Chief Audu Obe has actually told us, very startling revelations about population, particularly about population is very scary. You know, that in a couple of years' time, Nigeria is going to be like, I think, the third most in the entire world. Now, do you see Nigeria as the most populous black nation in the world under the ASIWAJU Bola Tinubu administration? Do you see us like moving notches further to sustain food security, sufficiency for our population, and maybe begin to really actually export? I'd like Professor Akin Oyerinde, Dean Faculty of Agriculture, to respond to this.
It's a great privilege being on this panel. And you see, when I came in, I have to meet the former Honorable Minister, because severally we've been on set and I've been close to the ministry when he happened to be the Honorable Minister. It's the privilege and a new drive that, like what His Excellency said on TV yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, I was following the program, when he said that this group of professionals in APC was formed because people thought politics is a dirty game and professionals are not involved. That word is highly touching because we are this reign, because most of the people that are participants, that are active in politics before, they are people that are not the professional left it to ordinary, joining the Joneses, bandwagon effect. But now that the professionals have rise up and we have taken it up and we have a very laudable candidate, ASIWAJU Ahmed Tinubu is a living example. We have shown it. So the quality of leadership means that there's a future for Nigeria. I want us to have this false belief. I'm privileged. When they call me professor, people, they're always shocked that this small boy at this age is a professor. It's a privilege. And I have the opportunity of being outside Nigeria. I've seen so many practices of agriculture. Our leaders, it's not that they are doing it, it's not that it's wrong, it's not that they did not do well. But the only thing is, agric is an emerging area, it's an emerging field. The latest agricultural practice in the world now is different from peasantry agriculture. Our population is a plus. We should never see our population as negative. That's why most of the other countries come to Nigeria for markets. We have over 200 million people. If we can produce food to feed 200 million people and turn our agric into business, where we have agripreneurship and agro-business, it means that we will be able to engage the population of our youth. So the agric of peasantry that people are practicing before, that is why you look down on everybody that is on the agric field and you call them farmer. And the kind of quality, the kind of picture we show are those haggard people that when you say His Excellency, how do you be? Like in one program I was asking, when you see the former Afan president, Karu, and the host of order, now we should present a modernized agriculture to our coming generation. So we've changed the training within the hub of the university. What we do now is what we call agripreneurship and agri-business training, where the younger ones can use the technology, advanced technology, ICT, modern, Internet of Things, and a host of other use of technology in modernized agriculture. If we are able to do that, we will add value to our commodity. If we add value to our commodity, we can now gain access to exportation. When Baba was talking about the issue of gaining access to foreign markets, we are not gaining access to foreign markets because we did not deliberately get involved in gaining access. In 2008, Ghana came to Nigeria. I was part of the committee that worked on the document when they want to prepare to start exporting yam from Ghana. When we finished that document is built for Nigeria, but we did not have a standard or what called a reference laboratory in Nigeria that is ISO certified to qualify what we want to export. But these are issues that need to be addressed, which I know that all Lagosian, they are smart as any kind of individual in the world. So, ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I know within that template, with what we have in the manifesto, going through this will take us
to the promised land.
Thank you very much. He is a professor, I guess, and the complexity of the problems in agriculture is multivocal on multifarious and complex, I understand. I'd like to apologize. We are supposed to be joined by Madam Muhammad Ali Baba, who's a retired Central Bank CBN Director and Development Finance Specialist, member of the Vice Finance Association. We'd like to apologize and welcome him to kindly join us. Please, a seat has been made, a provision has been made. Madam Muhammad Ali Baba, please kindly join. I would like to say, as you would see that the expanse of this, panel has been widened a little bit. So I urge my panelists to kindly be brief and straight to the point, so that everyone would get to say just one or two words before ASIWAJU comes in, and then we have the next session by the Honorable Minister. I'd like to go back to Chief Audu Obe. There was a time, sir, you spoke, I think, at the 19th edition of the Catholic Brothers United in Lagos. And at that particular time, you said Nigeria was spending about $22 billion, on food importation, which you've actually spoken about. And you championed, you gave answers, you talked about technology-driven agriculture. And you have served. And ironically, you gave us the tale of how, yam stayed at the ports for God knows how long, like forever, till the thing began to rot. Do you think any progress has been made? Are we still at that point, or has progress been made?
Well, thank you very much for this question. I don't think much progress has been made, because if you're going to ship certain commodities, packaging is an issue. First of all, there are certain sizes of yam you can't export. If they're huge tubers this long, no. A certain medium size. Why? The European family or consumer or the African out there wants to cut his yam and finish it in one day because he doesn't preserve it for too long. Just like their pawpaw. The pawpaw from Malaysia and so on going to Europe is of a mini size. The African pawpaw is a giant pawpaw. You can't finish it. These things have rules. We still don't have refrigerated containers, air-cooled containers to carry certain commodities abroad. I don't know what has happened. But the other issue is the Nigerian customs has never been very familiar with exports since the days of the commodity boards came and went. It's always imports. If you go to Côte d'Ivoire, you apply in the port, they ask you if you are going to export or if you are coming to collect a container. The export terminal is totally different. They know you cannot delay them. In Côte d'Ivoire, if you are exporting pineapples, the truck cannot be stopped by a policeman anywhere on the road. If the driver has done something wrong, you board the truck, follow the port to the truck, to the port, offload, and then the driver comes to answer the police. But here, the tax collector, revenue collector in a local government can lock you down for 3 days. The cargo plane that's supposed to fly your pineapples to Amsterdam or to London for the London fruit market, which opens at 1 a.m., the plane waits, the cargo hasn't arrived and goes off. Your truck is on the road for 3 days until the pineapples have started rotting. So it's an issue that government has to deal with. But as of now, I'm not too sure that anything has changed.
I'd like to go to Rex and Tedeke, convener Nigerian Farmers Group and Cooperative Society. We have so many of these challenges, and some of us who aren't farmers begin to wonder whether there'll be food at all. You're talking about poor infrastructure, there's limited food processing, there's everything, including inconsistent government policies. What is your experience within the farmers subsector, and as well, what do you think can be addressed in the Tinubu manifesto, or already has been addressed, which you may be aware of?
Thank you. The reality of our nation is that without agriculture we cannot succeed. We cannot develop, we cannot be secured, and we cannot be progressive. So when ASIWAJU spoke to access to funding, when he spoke to basic infrastructure, when he spoke to irrigation, he was speaking to the core of the Nigerian farmers' challenge. I am the one they call the Rebel. I run one of the biggest community farm projects in this country today in Nasarawa State. Example from him. When I saw him in 2017, he told me to go for plantation, palm trees. I have got 5,000 in Nasarawa State today. Now, the reality is this. Sorry to say this, but too many of us are focused on technology, it is not going to work. Until and unless we realize what our challenges are, we cannot solve the Nigerian problem. So you spoke to the fact that 70% of the Nigerian population, particularly women, are farmers. Majority of that population are in rural Nigeria. So, if you give them tractors, they cannot be productive. So what you do is you move to the east. We speak to what ASIWAJU spoke about when it came to Nasarawa State, spoke about agricultural hubs. What will agricultural hubs do? If you remember the Kubit model in Israel, what they did was to create industrial hubs that were premised on nationalistic approach to development, not whatever the foreign countries were telling you to do. And how does that make it easy for you to grow as a country? Like the former Honorable Minister said, export is not your problem. You are repeating the crude oil costs if you keep focusing on exporting what you are producing in agriculture. Because how much are you going to earn in dollars that you are actually going to give back when you import almost every other thing in what? In also dollars. So you can never grow if you don't look at growing from within. And that was when I saw this talk about the Agbado and cassava economy. So many people laughed, and we made it. We started the Agbado revolution. Because see, the yellow gold is the most productive gold for the human existence. If your smartphone lost, look at people in if your smartphone lost, if your car cannot move, you will eat, right? So the car will waste, smartphone will work, but a balance will waste. So when you laugh at Agbado, you actually laugh at your essence and your existence as a human being. Because food is the greatest resources of man outside air. So Agbado, if you focus on maize alone, for people who don't get it, China and the US have always gone to war because of soya. Economical, right? That's soya beans. Now think about it this way. Do you know that you have the capacity to be as productive as the United States with regards to maize? I'm not just maize but cassava. I'm not just cassava but yam. And so when I just spoke to your needs, you jumped about his understanding of your problems. The point is this. His manifesto is speaking to what is most vital. Produce as a people. Once you deploy your youth into reproductivity, you are only able to solve insecurity. You are going to be able to solve insecurity. And someone said, the minister said that, when was the last time that the youth thought of going to rural Nigeria to become productive? All of them want to be in Abuja. All of them want to be in Lagos. Sorry. In 2017, President Buhari said they used to go to agriculture. We left Abuja and went to Nasarawa State. Today that community is employing more than 500 people. We have not had one single headers farmers clash, and it's a massive production hub. So the headers farmers crisis you see, it's not a production, it's not an issue of Nigerians hating themselves. It's an economic problem. Why? The American cowboy and the Fulani headsman are one and the same person. Have you ever thought about this? But all of us listen to country music, Don Williams. When we were younger, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, Sanchez, their hat, their cap, their shirt. The Americans created an industry out of the cowboy. And today the American cowboy industry is a $500 billion industry that is larger than the Nigerian economy. Cowboy and Fulani has not been something. You've gotten to a point in your country where you focus on the sentiment rather than focus on the solution. And so, as I just telling you that, look back home. Nigeria must begin to work for Nigerians with opportunity in Nigeria. Okay. So if you like, brothers, if you like, don't plant trees. When was the last time you planted a tree? Let's be very honest with ourselves. China had an erosion crisis. What did they do? They evolved a policy to plant, I think, about 10 billion trees. Do you know what they mean for those trees today? If every home, when I was giving birth in 1976, I was born in Jos. My mama carried my umbilical cord, go village, they plant coconut tree. Today I can see the advanced tree. Until we become productive as a nation. Productivity is not coming to sit in Abuja and touch laptop. Until we become productive by going to rural Nigeria and evolving policies that ensure that every man there is producing something. Our visited places where some of their largest farm fields don't get the town road. They have just normal lateral road. And those farm fields with lateral road are adding billions of dollars to the U.S. economy. And then if you need to tell me that I need a smartphone to work in Nigeria, I'm not supposed to operate smartphone for Nigeria. I am a practical farmer. Something was changed on the CBN, yes, with regards to funding, long-term funding on the source of national funding. That's what I got, as I spoke to it became foundational. Because for as long as you treat commercial agriculture, developmental agriculture as a commercial entity, and the commercial banks are looking at it as what? Turnover business, it's never going to work. So that change to access to funding, basic infrastructure, and localization of the Nigerian productivity that Asiwaju spoke about is the only way that the future of your children can be secured, not the English that people are not speaking. Thank you.
Your Excellency, when he said to me, "Boss, I beg," I remember that this morning, the INEC chairman said youths have 76% of the PVC. And beyond that, on a serious note, I have actually gone to his farm. He actually created what in Nasarawa State we see as a miracle. I am Fulani, the chairman board of trustees, Madam Dr. ASIWAJU is Fulani. On his farm there, he has the Fulanis and the locals cohabiting, and you have a huge population, and it's such a unique miracle of humanity. And of course, PVC for APC, given the cap price. So it's okay, we give him the extra minutes. Boss, when I come back, I bet not take too much time. Well, I mean, he's walking his talk, and it's difficult. We have to change our mentality from taking caviar and champagne and chocolates and actually go back to engage real Nigeria, not just stay in the cities where everybody wants to be posted to do their youth service in Abuja. Let's go to the central bank. Madam Muhammad Ali Baba, retired CBN Director in Development, kindly speak to financing of agriculture. What's really been the problem all this while, and how do we go? And kindly, I know that you may not have enough votes, or you have more than him, but a bit let's conserve the time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. You know, first and foremost, we have to give credit to the efforts that has been made thus far, from 2015 till now, because I'm sure agriculture has never had this good. But you see, like most of the issues we've been talking to are traced back to the discovery, the oil cost, our elegant elder has referenced. So the same way after the oil boom, we turn our back on agri. That's why virtually every sector of the economy, particularly finance, sector, turn its back on agriculture. And of course, the cue comes from the government, and since agriculture was no longer a priority, there was no incentive for them to focus. So basically, there is, possibly a virtual lack of understanding of that sector and its impact on the economy. And that is why, when this government came and they decided to focus on agriculture, the beginning was, you may all recall, there was a policy issued, I think, in 2014 or 2015, where about 41 items were excluded from forex allocation. And top on that list were mostly agricultural products. So, and then there was a pushback, because then, of course, there were a few processors. We knew that we had just a single-digit rice mills and thereby. So there was that pushback, because then these mills merely import and clean and bag them. In fact, when we started that Anchor Boer program, we had to start from, offloading, taking off the glut, because the farmers that we were consulting, because we wanted to introduce the Anchor Boer program, we were lamenting that what do we need more funds for when what we are producing are not being off-taken. So we had to off-take the glut before they could listen to us. Now, then this same number, the genesis of that Anchor Boer is that it was to hang on these millers. It was supposed to be a private sector driven approach. But unfortunately, like we said, they were not set up to actually take from the home front. So, and then of course the response was very poor. I can recall a particular high-profile industrialist that said he wanted to target 25,000 farmers, and he started with 500. So we wonder when we reach that target. So, and then of course the banks, like I said, everybody had turned his back on agriculture. So they even, they consider, it's like throwing money down the drain when you go into agriculture. And then the private sector itself wasn't ready. So that was what brought the CBN into the mix. Because CBN issued that policy in the first place, so there was that pushback. And that was why the Anchor Boer program was introduced. Now the expectation is that over time, the private sector will find it, private finance will find it attractive enough and then come in. Unfortunately, typically, that hasn't happened. And that is why for now, and then of course, another major fundamental issue we need to also address is the orientation. Because part of, like I said, we are part of those that created, part of it was financial mainstreaming. Because we actually need, for every economic activity, we need finance. So, but these farmers particularly, because they feed us, we all know that there are no commercial farms around. But they need to create a profile enough to make them attracted to finance. And that was why part of what we did was to enhance, provide a basis for financial inclusion. But like I said, typically because of the way we handle it, it's government, the orientation is that this is my share of the national cake. The Nigerian factor came in. While productivity, actually everybody can attest to that, but the objective of creating a financial landscape or ecosystem that will have qualified these farmers to, on their own strength now, be attractive to finance was lost. Now, thankfully, and that is why we expected that this government coming will bring upon it, we have the Agricultural Development Trust Fund. Baba Buhari has just signed that, and some of us look up to it because one of the issues raised by our erudite panelists here has to do with the structure of financing the agriculture sector. You need medium to long-term funds, especially just like Reston has been mentioning. When we want to focus on exporting rural agricultural products, we are just repeating the old costs. So now we hope that this Agricultural Development Fund will provide a basis, but most importantly, we just need to go back to the basics. These rural farmers, rural development has been repeatedly emphasized. We also need to focus on how we can mainstream this our saviors, the rural farmer, into the formal financial system, so that with time they will have developed enough profile that even the private finance will find them attractive to fund, because government alone definitely can't fund agriculture. So we just have to find that nexus, that mix, that will ensure that both the government and the private finance focus mainly and sustainably in providing the required finance for agriculture.
Thank you very much. You know, in his, I think the book, Singapore, from Lee Kuan Yew, from third world to first world, it took Lee Kuan Yew, I think, about 30 years to make that leap from third world to first world. And we don't take into cognizance how nations are built like that. every time we talk about Nigeria, it's like a conundrum of complex problems. You open one door and the next door opens on its own. It is before the 2015 elections, when Chief Adobe was speaking on the campaign trail, everybody said this man had all the answers. He was encyclopedic. And he became and was the agriculture minister. And you've asked the same question, and well, not much has actually changed. And okay, if government has done its bit, the private sector has not latched on it. You have pumped money into agriculture, youths don't want to go to the rural areas. So you begin to sometimes ask yourself, what is the problem with us? If we're given the same 30 years that Singapore had, is it in our genes? Because we're the largest, black nation on earth. What is it that makes Nigeria go forward and takes 2 steps backward?
Let me interrupt you a little bit. If you take the history of Pakistan and India, the two became independent on the 15th of August 1947. Pakistan and India fell apart. We even had a war. India, for 75 years, since the date of independence, has never had a coup. No disruption. So they've had a steady civil service, technocrats. The judiciary in India is so powerful, the Prime Minister is scared of them. Now, on the other hand, in Pakistan, no elected government in Pakistan has ever finished its tenure. Been disrupted. Now, instability, agriculture was like the young man is saying, we had it. We exported groundnuts. People were calm. The native authorities were supportive. And like he was saying, tar roads, even in the US, you go to Georgia, you go around the groundnut farms. They are not tar roads, but they are level. So, as long as we disrupt the system, a new set of people tries to build a tradition. It gets disrupted. Number 2, we've had too much turnover in the agric ministry. I was in Morocco. The minister was there for 13 years. And the king gave us dinner. He said, this man is a businessman, but he likes agriculture. I keep him there because I see where he's taking us to. The disruptions. So policy can't stand. And then credit. You can't ask me to borrow at 27% to finance a factory, then buy my generator and buy diesel and compete with the man from China. You can't. So this is the issue. So nobody seems to know to be able to roll it along because nobody has the patience.
Thank you very much. Very unraveling, very insightful. I'd like to go to Mr. Gideon Negadu, the Executive Secretary, Fertilizer Producers and Suppliers Association, and also a member of the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. What has government done to support your own work? What can be done on ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu to move? Because at the end of the day, every plant, everything needs fertilizer. So what is being done?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that the fertilizer industry has never had it this good. Again, credence to our Oda and Florette again, sir, King's College, who was forthright in ensuring what we call the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative today. Just a bit of a background. Fertilizer has been one of those very naughty areas as far as input supply in Nigeria is concerned. It's not just only related to Nigeria, but most sub-Saharan countries have this challenge of effectively giving farmers fertilizers on time. The corruption around that ring is very attractive. Any subsidy that is above 50%, in our view, will always naturally attract corruption. One of the things our administration was able to do was to look at the what, work with the private sector to say what can we do differently. The approach is what has bettered the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative today, which the former Honorable Minister was among the key people that midwife that. We usually depended on fertilizers to be imported into the country. But I can happily say that 90%, if not 95% of the fertilizers that we've been using since 2016 is blended and produced here in Nigeria. When we started the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, we only had about 2 functional blending plants with installed capacity of about 300,000 tons, but we're doing less than that. Our national requirement is about 2.5 million tons every year, and we couldn't meet that, those numbers. Today I'm proud to announce that we have 72 blending plants, and all these blending plants are from the private sector. Private sector saw a policy that works and invested in it. Thankfully too, the local plant, the Dangote plant in Lagos, as we all know, is also complete. Indorama added another $2 billion in investment, all within this space. So the microeconomic space has been attractive to invest in. I don't think I should drill too much on time because a lot of our panelists have made the emphasis. From the manifesto, one of the key things that is interesting to us is the fact that from the 35% arable land that we have now, there is a deliberate interest to increase that to about 85%. And it is not ambitious, if you ask me. The roadmap to achieve that is very clear. The track record of ASIWAJU makes it something of comfort that it is achievable. So for us, we think that building up on what we have right now would encourage the private sector to invest more, discourage imports as we all have discussed here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I think I'll open up the floor so we can get questions from the audience. It's agriculture, and let's, yes, we have one question. We give him the microphone, please. Kindly introduce yourself, sir, and then you can ask your question. If there's no mic, you can take mine. Thank you.
Good afternoon, the panelists, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Chief Taufik Idowu. I am the convener of housing exhibition and conferences in Abuja, Nigeria. Mine will be a little contribution, and I crave the indulgence of the Hancock and the House to allow me a few minutes to do this. The reason being that just yesterday, when the chairman of the BOT of APC Professional Forum made a presentation or appearance on NTA, I first of all want to congratulate you for that program and today's program and all the program that we've been doing. One question was asked, and that is what led me to wanting to make this presentation. Secondly, our Baba, the former Minister of Agriculture, was very, very passionate about Nigeria and about the problem currently confronting us and more that we are likely to be facing as a country. Yesterday, the presentation on NTA, one of the questions they asked is that Nigerians are asking, what is our incoming president, ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what does he want to do in the housing sector? As his manifesto covered the housing sector, because they felt that they have looked through the manifesto and they found that there is no caption for housing. This, the chairman of our BOT and the entourage that went, they made a lot of explanation, which is very correct. The manifesto of our incoming president covers everything. But it may not have been possible to detail everything in one document. And that is why we as professionals are here to support him. Secondly, our father, like I said, talked about food, the problem confronting us as a country, and the implication it may have in the near future. He also touched about housing He said, where are the houses that will house these 450 million Nigeria in the next couple of decades? And that made me, as a former vice chairman, North Central Real Estate Developer Association of Nigeria, when I had that question yesterday, and I was also former Secretary General of Red and FCT, I have decided to present this document, which I titled Towards Successful Resolution of Housing Sector Problems in Nigeria, under APC President ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu, 2023 and beyond. You may not have been present here today, but I have the greatest honor. It has encapsulated the problem we are finding, we are having, the source of those problems, and what we need to do, which I captured as 8 stakeholders approach of how to solving the existing problem, so that we can have deliberate policy towards answering our people of today, the 76% youths of today and tomorrow, and moving forward. So I want to present this document to someone that I believe will get this document to our Baba, the incumbent president. I've got 2 copies there. I took it upon myself, and it's because I'm passionate about this country, and I'm passionate about our incoming president. Okay, can we give him a rousing round of applause? Thank you so very much. Thank you, sir. I also want to present the second document to Barrister Babatunde Ogala, because I know how close he is and his efforts towards winning the next election for APC and for our incoming president. Please let this document get to me, and I believe it will help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
This was your get. This is
Okay. We would like to assure you that, you can give Barrister live microphone. Okay. Sir, the document you presented, in case His Excellency ASIWAJU walks in, there's no need for you to collect it back from them to give it to him yourself. It has already moved. Well, thank you very much. Please, Barrister, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and congratulations to the panel and the keynote speaker, Honorable Minister Aldo Ogbe. It was inspiring to listen to some of the discussion that the panel members have, they have done justice quite a lot to the ASIWAJU's manifesto on agriculture. I just wanted to add a little bit of something to that, because we have listened many times to the vice presidential candidate, His Excellency Senator Shetima, and he has, in many occasions, narrated his own experience when it comes to agric. He's someone who is tested and trusted in that field. The experience of Borno State, what he did in terms of mechanizing the agricultural sector in the state. He boasts of having about 50% of the tractors in Nigeria being located within that state. And this is really something, that's why I buy with the what Redson is doing and what he was saying. This is the critical area that we're going to have the blessings. Imagine a country with about 34 million hectares of arable land. Only about 41% of that is being cultivated at the moment. What are we doing with these vast natural resources? It's a natural resource too, because, and let me tell you, one of the problems that where we had departure from agriculture, it's what we call the drought disease. The moment we discovered oil, that was the moment we decided to abandon our farms. And now we have seen how far oil can take us. There is all forms of renewable energy coming on board. So we are now going back to where we started, to the farmland, and we are lucky as Nigeria. We have the resources and we have the leadership coming. ASIWAJU and Kashim Shetima are two great minds that understand the
this area, this new gold mine, agriculture. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank
you very much. Indeed, yes, the next gentleman then. Indeed, and I'd like to see hands of ladies, please, so that we can balance the question. Okay, and so on there. Okay, 2, 3. Please come here, sir.
My name is Ilyas Maazu. I'm the National Vice President of Maize Association of Nigeria. I want to talk on the farmer's perspective. It's like I'm more confused to what you people are saying. Well, it's a very good brainstorming session because I had the presidential aspirant, that is Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu, in one session in Mina. He says, and I quote, that national development is impossible without sustainable transformation of our rural economy, which is agriculture. So in a clear term, what has manifesto says about this? How are we going to accomplish this? Because I want to take a message to my people, and there are none of you touches on that area, which is the key point to me.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, before we give the lady, please. Sorry, gentlemen, there's a lady here. Let's hold on. I'd like to respond. Before the manifesto, which is 80 pages, was, may I have your attention, please, sir, so that I can answer you. Before the manifesto was created, what they did, ASIWAJU Bola Tinubu and His Excellency, Most Distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, what they did was they went around the country. What you have is not just a blueprint, it's a working and workable blueprint that states, the problem and how to solve it. But it is 80 pages, and because it is 80 pages, it requires, again, it is a listening document, which means it has taken your voices and put it there. And it is available to the entire country, including yourself. If you just click on the internet now, you'll get it. You'll get the 80 pages version, you'll get the 10-page, somebody has summarized it, the 5-page, and so on. What we're really happy about is that there's a robust conversation going on right now that needs everyone to see what they can do with the document. So if you're taking a message back to your people, kindly also encourage them not just to take what message we can give in this very short space of time, but that they can have access to the same document, not just the 80 pages, but the brief version, the reviews, all of it is on the internet. Just check it yourself. You're a Nigerian, and take ownership of it as well. So that might help all of us even understand it better. And just like this man who read it and decided to look at the housing aspect, you can also bring something from your end as well. I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Hassan Liman San, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is a member of the Presidential Campaign Council. So thank you so much for joining us. Hajia, please, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, distinguished panelists. My name is Engineer Dr. Ramatu Abarshi. I am from the pastoralist communities. Over the years, we have been working on the promotion of livestock. Our men, our women, our communities have concern about what is the plan of our manifesto on the promotion of livestock. Again, there has been conflicts within the farmer-header communities and grassroots. And this has been, the causes has been explained as poverty and other things. But we do know that there is this peculiar causes of conflicts between the farmer and herder that has to do with stock roots. What do we have for these communities that have been having crisis of stock roots, the local stock roots, the state stock route and the international route? Thank you so much.
Okay. Sorry, Honorable Minister, we'll come back to each of the panelists to respond to all of these questions. So kindly keep taking note of them. In your final comments, you would say it, and Honorable Minister, you can also. So let's take the next question as well. The Honorable Minister has actually has heard yours, and he has something to say about it. All the other questions will still be addressed by the panelists. They would say one or two things about it. There's another lady down there.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm here already. Okay. Good afternoon, panelists. So my name is Vincent Asa, and I'm a member of the APC Board of Trustees as well. I just want to make a remark with regard to access to finance, which is part of the Agricultural Manifesto of ASIWAJU. The ex-minister made this thing. We're actually in a situation where we have a financing model that I don't think is sustainable. We need to look at introduction of subsidies, because the alcohol bailout program is excellent. It's the first thing something like that has happened. But we can see, and I'm sure a lot of farmers know will tell you that they're having challenges, even with the support from the alcohol bailout program. A lot of the rice program, which is government has also innovated, is a lot of people say, okay, the locally produced, what's the cost of rice today? And I think we don't understand that our rice in Nigeria is actually struggling against dumping, because like the Chief Alderman said, agriculture in the US and in the West is heavily subsidized. So when they bring it down here, we are competing with products that are actually being dumped. So we have to start to realize that we get to a point where we don't just do agricultural finance, we actually have to start looking at subsidies so that the farmers can get secure incomes, because there's a benefit in food being available for everybody. It's a social benefit. Thank you. Thank you. Please give the lady here. Microphone, please give the lady there.
Hello, good afternoon, panelists. Good afternoon, fellow APC members. My name is Patience Afebu. I'm from Edo State. I'm more concerned about the amity production. I produce toilet papers. So I'm more concerned about what the manifesto of ASIWAJU will do during his administration about the revenues, about taxations. We pay so much to local government, and they add nothing, they add no value to the industries. Then you pay on the road when you're taking your products to the market, you pay in your business premises, you pay all round. And at this point, my question is, what will he do with the local government? Because they receive much and like they do nothing. They rather frustrate businesses and they contribute nothing to business. So as a concerned business woman, I want to plead with our incoming president to look into this seriously and encourage the business people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I think we have not been taking questions from this side, so we'll come back to this side. We saw quite a lot of, okay, Tom.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramatu Hussein. I'm a student, and I'm happy to be here. So my question goes to the Honorable Minister, the former Honorable Minister. He talked about cashew, and I was so interested in what he said because my dad happened to go into cashew farming, and as a child, the only thing we know is that he's wasting his time because it's not benefiting us in this country, and that's the reality. But happen to hear what you've said today, I think I would encourage my dad as a child, and I would try to visit his farm. That's one. Secondly, sir, please, what is the government doing to benefit we, the Nigerians? Because in Nigeria, I happen to come from the state with the highest production, the state that produced cashew, the highest producing state, which happened to be Kogi State. And Nigerian annually, based on the statistic from 2019 to date, Nigeria they almost produce 200 metric tons of cashew, and what goes out is 100. So what is that 120 doing? How is it benefiting us, the citizen in this country? And my second question goes to this Honorable Minister. The one, okay, the one on blue. Okay,
You should have said income.
Okay.
Because it's a youth inclusive government.
Okay. As a youth, I'm happy to see youth sitting and addressing matters. And happen to be a youth who decides to go into manufacturing, agriculture precisely, sorry. What I'm saying is, the farming you are doing, what is the corporate social responsibility you are giving out to the society, the community, not the empowerment, the corporate social responsibility that you are giving out?
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I saw a hand here. Okay, please come. Yeah, this gentleman. Okay, give them a cacao.
I think
we'll just take this last two
panelists, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Ali. I am a lawyer, a boardroom administrator, and a corporate professional. Now, my question was supposed to be taken at the last session, however, is interwoven with the issue on agriculture and rural development. I know we've spoken so much about the empowerment of the urban woman. I'm going to put it that way. Like most of us know, the females that are in this hall represent the urban woman. But I want to specifically be concerned and ask about the women at the rural area. What are the clear developmental plans for them? Because those women are the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Okay, you weren't part of the women panel discussion that held. Okay, no problem. Just that's in front, please.
Hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm coming again for the second time. This time around, I want to talk about agriculture. I happen to be an accidental farmer, and I've been in farming for the past, I would say, more than 30 years. And I can tell you, one of the major problems bedeviling agriculture, if I would say it, I teach engineering in ABU, and that's just by the way, and I've worked in government as well. You see, the major problem bedeviling agriculture, if I would speak about the Northwest, or particularly Kaduna area, you see, I have my animals, and I'm into grass farming, okay? I farm grass. It looks strange to some people. I plant fodder, and I have my baler. All these things were acquired from personal finance. And when you approach the banks, the major problem is, one, finance. Number two, I'm happy the fertilizer mine is here. You will agree. When you said we have about 42 blending plants, 72, right? You see, it looks exciting to me, but at the same time, if you go to the market, the price of fertilizer has not come down. You know, both last year, I know how much we bought NPK, how much we bought urea, even last year. You see, and thirdly, the question of security. I'm a member of APC Presidential Campaign Council and ASIWAJU Independent Campaign Council. I've stressed this in different fora, and I won't be shy to say it here again. The issue of security is very important. As I speak to you now, yesterday night, cattle were rustled from the neighbors of my farm. Okay, we were rustled. So this issue of cattle rustling is very important. Now, when you talk about milk production, we still import milk into this country. We still import milk. I belong to a group called Codran. Codran is a group of association of dairy farmers, because I produce milk at the same time. But the milk I produce may not be enough, but when taking the clusters together could help in cutting down on importation. So what I'm trying to say is to stress this issue to stress these three factors: security, finance, and fertilizer and inputs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The lady is the last person. This lady beside me, she'll be the last, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Honorable Aisha Miller. I just want to emphasize on something, on a very key point. We talk about agriculture. You need to realize that agriculture actually encompasses a lot of things. Coming from my background, I did my national diploma in agriculture, and I'm a senior clinical consultant pharmacist. You know, I studied abroad, I studied in UK, and I practiced there, hoping to come back to Nigeria. Right, agriculture encompasses something we call pharmacognosy. What is pharmacognosy? Pharmacognosy is the study of medicinal plants. Where do you get plants from? Plants from agriculture. And what do you do with the plants? You actually use these plants to generate and make medicinal drugs. So agriculture encompasses pharmaceutics. Nigeria is endowed with land, with agricultural, all sources of resources when it comes to agriculture. So we should be producing drugs, medications to export abroad, not importing all those medications into this country. So I believe the manifesto should critically look into pharmacognosy as part of agriculture, i.e. pharmaceutics. We shouldn't be importing drugs. We should be exporting. So that is part of agriculture. So how are we going to incorporate these? Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. The man, you've been moving with the microphone, so you take the last.
Okay.
Just say the last thing.
My name is
sorry, we apologize. We can't take more. We have other sessions. Go ahead. Go ahead,
my name is Hashim Abdul Karim. I just want to give a contribution regarding what the former minister has said that has to do with the state should be identified based on the agricultural archives, like what they specialize on, particularly the northern state. What I want to contribute here is that some of the states, they specialize on certain crops. So this is what we are going to do here. If this will be added into the manifesto of the agricultural plan, the credit facilities from the CBN and commercial banks that are into agriculture should be tailored based on the states that specialize on crops. By doing so, I believe we are going to do, because we need to restore our pride. How are we going to do it? Maybe if we look at the agricultural archive, like I said earlier, you will see how each and every state specializes on one or two things. It's rather because we must commend this administration, the issue of NISAL and other credit facilities that has to do with commercial banks. It has done tremendously. Billions of naira has been given. But I believe there is need for a review, particularly the project, the policy of NISAL that has to do with issue of JOCOP. We must get 200 hectares of land before. All those things cannot be actualized, because where are you going to get that 200 hectares of land? You need to reduce the technicalities, because farmers and the digital issues that has been imposed in times of all those things, they are too rigorous for the real farmers to actualize. I think all these things need to be reduced so that we need to be so that we can reach the real farmers. That is my contribution.
We'd like to thank everyone. Thank you. I'm really very sorry we can't take any more questions. But it is very evident, it's very evident there's such a thing called citizen activism. It's very obvious that all of us as Nigerians are interested in the future of this country. We're supremely interested in the coming elections, because it offers for all of us a historical intersection to change the fortunes of this country. So all of these questions, some you can check online, make sure you have your PVC, mobilize a lot of people, and support our candidate, so that all of these contributions can actually be engineered. We'll just take briefly from each of my panelists here. They'll speak briefly. We'll begin this way. We'll begin from Manuel. Briefly address some of the questions so that we can round up this session. Please, go ahead. Maybe just briefly, I'm sure that at the end of the day we'll give more time to the Honorable Minister, since he's, of all of us, he has a more towering
understanding of the field.
Thank you. Yeah, perhaps I'll start from the last because it's address credit facilities. And in my presentation, we have highlighted almost what the last week was saying on the need for our credit facilities or policies should be crop or sector specific. So like I mentioned, the signing, though it's not started, the signing of the Agri Development Trust Fund use calls for cheer, really, especially having so suddenly lost the Anchor program that has been supporting our system or the other CBN intervention funds. So I think going forward, and it's expected that just like, anytime I mention this Agri Trust Fund, I get excited because it just reflects what Port Fund is doing to the universities. That's how I look up to it. Of course, we all appreciate that without Port Fund, perhaps a lot of these schools would have still by now. Now, to pharmaceutics, pharmaceutics, and I we are emphasizing this because around here, I'm not sure there is so much interest in that yet, except for these our camps that we put. So, and I think the specialists will need to give some highlights to this new field. And of course, the prof. I'm glad you say we are into grass farming. Incidentally, I'm the interim president of the Pastoral and Livestock Feeds Association. And that is one sector that we also need to actually pay attention to, especially in view of what the lady doctor has raised, the issue of pastoralists and farmer-harbour clashes. But most importantly, our erudite Baba, highlighted what the Netherlands, what they are doing to agriculture, especially livestock. So luckily, very luckily too, we're just glad that the emphasis here has been on continuity, because what the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, particularly the Animal Husbandry Department, is actually doing in trying to revive our grazing reserves and also developing a lot of policies across the livestock value chain. I think we build upon when this government comes, because that is one subsector that I feel we need to focus upon and all the economic spin-offs that observable. Now I think I'll allow others to.
Thank you very much. Chief, please.
So many issues have been raised. Grass farming. Are you growing alfalfa? Do you have alfalfa grass? Don't. Okay. I'll take. Okay. We have seeds here now. Yes. I'll take your card and maybe give you some seeds to do an experiment. All right. Now, grass is big business for feeding cattle. When I got to the Ministry of Agriculture, I mentioned grass. Nigerians abused me, useless old man, now grass now. But the problem in this country is, the problem here is, if you start talking of nuclear physics tomorrow, a truck pusher will participate in the debate. For ignorance, but they will jump in. Grass is big business. So if you are in it, go ahead with it. I was suggesting that Ahmed Bola Tinubu should set up a directorate of rural development under his control. Otherwise, he cannot bypass the states and local governments. Make the local governments work. The lady just told us now, we are carrying your yams to the market, we pay revenue. We are passing by with your eggs, we pay revenue. But in the market, there's no toilet. When it's raining, the rain beats you. So what is this revenue the local government is collecting being used for?
Finance. Before we ended the first term of the president, I had gone to India with some staff of the Bank of China. We wanted to create a bank of agriculture along the lines of the Chinese model. It's the largest bank in the world. The World Bank has tried to go there and remodel it. The Chinese have told them to keep their distance. It is so rich that they have hotels, shipping lines, and so on. They lend money to 6%. But every Chinese farmer is a shareholder. So it's something we recommend again, because pass the information to the Bureau of the BPE, private enterprise. They had gone very far before we ended the last term. So that is something we need to do. That's something we need to do. And somebody, my phones are there. Pick up my phones.
I'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister. I'd like to invite you for sure, please. We must really welcome the Honorable Minister. I would like to apologize. Thank you. I'd like to apologize to our elder statesman, Chief Advocate, for the breaking transmission. Thank you very much. You're most warmly welcome. Honorable Minister,
yes.
Final comments have just been made.
Let me welcome my friend Babatunde Raji Fashola. You remember when we started working on forming the APC in 2014, we met in Abuja here for 4 months. And we were always on the phone to him, because mergers are very rare to find in politics. You find alliances which break up like flirtatious marriages. This one has lasted, we've done 2 terms, and we're going into another 2 terms by the grace of God. Because it was a political miracle. We don't read about mergers in political history. Parties don't merge because they quarrel too quickly. So welcome, Red, and God bless you. Now, somebody spoke about Thailand, and people now ask, why is their own rice landing here cheaper? Well, the government of Thailand subsidizes the export of rice so they can earn foreign exchange. Number 2, the cost of transporting a trailer load of rice from Kebbi to Lagos is sometimes higher than the cost of transporting a container from China to Lagos. Transport costs. When we have a sound railway system, these things will begin to fall into place. Transportation is a very serious problem here, because the driver will tell you, on my way I may lose a tire. The tire is 500,000. Or the roadblocks, I have to pay. If not, they force me to offload. Part of the corruption in the system. So when people complain that Nigerian rice should be cheaper, it should be, but the reality is that it is not. Now when Lagos begins to mill rice, the largest rice mill in Africa is coming up in Lagos. If we can have railways, networks, moving rice paddy from Lagos, from Kebbi, Katsina, Jigawa, to go and mill in Lagos, the price of rice in Lagos will fall. This is reality. So the Bank of Agric, we're trying to restructure along the lines of the Bank of Agric in China, and every farmer is expected to be a shareholder. We hope then that we can have much lower rates for agriculture. Herdsmen and farmers, unknown to all of you here, there was an agreement signed at the level of ECOWAS in 1998 permitting cattle from anywhere in West Africa to come here and graze. Cows can come from Mali, Mauritania, wherever, and come and graze here. And in theory, our own cows can go there and graze. In practice, the 16 million cows in West Africa, according to the Google map we have, half of them between Niger and Nigeria, every other country is working in here to graze because we have longer wet seasons than they have. That creates a problem. Along with those coming in, rustlers come. So it's not the Nigerian indigenous Fulani that's the problem, it is the one who walks in. One night I was in my house when the governor of Katsina rang me, said 3,000 cows have just arrived at the border. What do I do with them? I said, I can't keep them in my sitting room, you keep them because they are your visitors. He locked them out for a while. I don't know how he ended with it, but they come. So it's a challenge, which is why we started talking about keeping the cattle in settlements, Cows are not meant to roam. And that's why the production of milk here is so low. 2 liters of milk a day. A cow in Holland does 40 liters. A cow in Israel does 35 liters. We do 2. So we import milk. And bad quality milk, powdered milk, which you have to reconstitute with water. Cows should stay in one space, eat, because cows are not horses, they don't like to walk. But when they walk around, they also have a potential for spreading a disease, bovine TB. Some cows have TB, and it can pass on to human beings. So these are serious issues the government will have to deal with. Keep the cows, feed them well, and protect them against rustlers. Well, armed men to make sure that thieves don't come at night and match away your cows. These are serious problems in agri, which the new government, I hope, will face very seriously. And finally, stock routes. If we have our cows settled in one place, the idea of stock routes will become irrelevant to it. Thailand was the biggest exporter of rice to Nigeria. But India has overtaken Thailand as the largest producer of rice in the world. There is a state called Bangalore in India. If you go there, there are 33,000 rice mills in one state. Here was a state in which people were dying on the streets. When Prime Minister Latri would go on television in 1954 begging Indians to fast for 2 days a week because there was no food to eat. Today, India is the largest producer of rice and is self-sufficient. We can do it if we can have stability. But as long as policies keep changing, there's no hope. Now, I will soon be setting up a small office here. My brother Raji is helping me out with these things, where some of you can come. If you are interested in developing something in agriculture, let's have a chat. One of the finest things to do is a plantation. And that's why I like you guys to clap for that young man, because the man who sets up a plantation is a man or woman who has faith in his country and faith in God. After all, I'm still planting palm trees. I am now. I have 400 football fields. And I'm laying down the trees. It's costing a hell of a lot of money. Buying diesel, paying the bulldozer operator. You turn your back, your operator will steal half of your diesel and sell back to you when you come back. Now, if you arrest him, you're a very wicked old man who doesn't like helping young people. But I'm planting. Because 1 hectare of palm can give you 5 million naira per annum if well planted. So those of you who have some land, it doesn't have to be 200 hectares, plant something. The best I would advise you is bananas. The banana industry is $13 billion, controlled by Germans in the West Indies. Do 1 hectare of bananas, I promise you 12 million naira per annum, if you have the right variety. 1 football field, if you can irrigate it. And nowadays you can put up an irrigation system using solar energy, lie on your bed, instruct your pumps from your phone, and your pumps will deliver water for 1 hour or 2, depending on what you want, from your bed. The only thing is, a few thieves will come with me. I can't help you with that. But to think about it yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I'd like to apologize. The Honorable Minister Works and Housing, who just came and had to break away from a very critical state function which has to do with our campaign, but he had to come in here to quickly deliver his paper. So we'll have to take him on right now. I believe that most of the questions have already been answered, and my panelists are so kind. They have agreed that let's all look at the internet and get more details about agriculture. So where's the photographer? Please step forward. Photographer, the still photographer, kindly come forward. We'd like to thank Chief Aldobe. We'll invite our panelists, please. So just stand forward here. Can I take a photograph? Thank the panel on agriculture led by Chief Adobe, the former Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. I'd like to thank all of you for being a part of it. Wesson Tedeke, Professor Akim Orlando, and Gideon Nagadu, and Malam Muhammad Ali Baba. We'd like to thank you all for being a part of this session. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, the APC Professionals Forum, 2nd edition, Dissecting the ASIWAJU Manifesto, continues with our next session. Can we kindly be seated? No, thank you so very much. We're still expecting His Excellency ASIWAJU Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but if I can have your attention, please, the ushers that are moving around, can we kindly get calm? We have said that the ASIWAJU, the Tinubu Shatima manifesto is a listening manifesto, is the one that was developed after the candidates traversed the entire length and breadth of this country. At this point, we'll go into the next panel discussion. Before we do that, it's my singular honor and privilege to invite the Honorable Minister, Works and Housing, the very hard-working, excessively brilliant politician that he is, a politician of excellent sobriety and very appropriate modesty, and two-term governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Honorable Minister Babatunde Raji Fashola, who will be making the key presentation before we invite the panelists. My singular honor and privilege to invite the Honorable Minister, sir. Can we welcome him with a rousing round of applause?
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with two apologies. The first was that I received a very short noticed invitation to speak at an earlier forum of this earlier edition of this symposium, and I just could not make it. I sincerely apologize. I've spoken to the organizers as to why it was impracticable for me to do so at the time. Let me also apologize today for the time I arrived, and I was in the Federal Executive Council. I had at a time to take permission to leave in order to be here, and let me say that I am truly delighted to be here, and I must commend the forum, because this is for me the real emerging phase of our democratic experience, where we can really do the intellectual debate and analysis about policy options. And for me, this is where democratic choices and democratic alternatives, where the rubber meets the road. And you will see that some of our opponents are unable to articulate which, with detail, when you press their feet to fire, and they say, oh, when we get there. And so this meeting to discuss our manifesto is most welcome. Mr. Chairman, I thank you and your colleagues for convening this forum, and long may it live. So I will start my intervention by asking a question I ask people. If they can remember anything, just anything, that the main opposition party, when they were elected in 1999, and with respect to Chief ASIWAJU, who was their chairman at some time, and I think that's why he stopped worshiping in that parish and moved to a better parish. But let us ask ourselves, how many of you, how many Nigerians can remember what they promised in 1999? Any takers? What did they promise? Sir? You heard them in 1999. Where were you then? What? One person out of a multitude. Good try. You know the interesting thing? When Chief ASIWAJU, myself and a couple of others were working in the manifesto committee of this party in 2014, we actually checked out what their manifesto was, and we saw that they had kept the same manifesto for 16 years. They took it off their website eventually. So, for me, I think that we elected a party at the time into government who had no clear policy direction of what they were coming to do. Over 16 years, we had slogans like the transformation agenda. whose details remain undisclosed. And this was at a period of very prolific earnings for our country. Oil revenues were sky high. But all we had was transformation agenda. At some point, we had about a 7-point agenda. I think some of you might recall that. Hello? And then later, it became a 5-point agenda. But where are the details? Maybe it's hidden under the umbrella. Well, it's a very, very significant pause for us to look that we surrendered 16 years of our lives to a party from 1999 to 2015, and they made no credible promises or a recognizable commitment. Think about it. What did they promise? And we just let them go for 16 years. Happily, they are now in opposition. Happily. And long may they remain there. Now, some of you might wonder why I choose to start my intervention this way. Because I'm supposed to speak about power. Am I not? So, it's the reason. There are some people who erroneously assert that Nigerian politics is not about issues. They are wrong. They are wrong. Because my party, the APC, came into office by identifying the major issues confronting Nigeria before the 2015 general elections. We undertook a national survey unknown to some people. The survey covered 20,000 persons who answered 60 questions each. So our road to power was not accidental, it was planned, it was purposed, and it was based on data. And we showed in 2014, that the issues at the top of mind of voters were security, corruption, and the economy. APC made very clear commitments about how to deal with those issues, and we got elected. So let me pause there and say that today, not a few people, indeed many people will say, oh, you promise economy, you promise corruption, you promise security. People remember what we committed to. That is a major difference between us and them. And all of these issues remain a work in progress. And let us remember that. As far as the economy is concerned, one of its drivers is infrastructure, to which the APC has vigorously committed herself. So I always tell people, and I remind people, that President Buhari did not campaign on infrastructure. He campaigned on the economy. But in order to deliver an economy, you need the infrastructure. And President Buhari has held nothing back, really, in responding to our infrastructure needs. And you will see now thousands of kilometers of roads and bridges at various stages of execution, completion, or commencement. You will see airport runways being expanded. Whenever you fly again, keep an eye on the runway, because there's a lot of attention on the terminal buildings, but your runways across Nigeria, the major 5 international airports, are looking like almost any other runway now in the world. But you may not notice it. A new seaport in Lekki, the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline to expand gas supply and gas distribution Train 7 of the NLNG, and an investment by government into the Dangote refinery. This is important. Dangote started the project, private sector doing something really defining and national, and the government has said, we will support your spine so that you can complete it. And what will be the purpose? To stop importation of petroleum products. But in addition to supporting private sector investment, government is also saying government has confronted the 4 refineries that are either underperforming or not performing. These are PNB's legacy. These are APC's legacy. And every member of this party should own them because they serve a purpose. And I will come to that purpose. You might again ask, why is this important? Why is he not speaking about power, which is why they called him? I will get there. Our opponents are reluctant to acknowledge this progress on infrastructure. Even when they grudgingly acknowledge it, you know what they say? Hey, but we started the projects. They want to share. Or they say, well, you see, yes, you have done that, but the economy. But the truth is that every time I listen to them say this, it becomes clearer to me the way they could not make promises, discernible promises over 16 years, that they cannot connect infrastructure to the economy. They can't. So they don't see the jobs during construction, they don't see the suppliers during construction, they don't see dead quarries that have come to life, they don't see business in cement industry that is booming because of construction and the people it is employing. And therefore, not only can they not see what is happening today in terms of infrastructure and the economy, they will be unable to see what it looks like tomorrow. So you will hear them saying, they want to stimulate the economy by production. But that is their home economics model. It's not public finance. But that home economics model does not tell them and does not address how anyone can really expect to produce through an industrial, agricultural, and whatever capacity when you do not have roads, when you do not have ports, when you do not have bridges, and when you do not have gas. Chief Audu has talked to us here about Thailand's export policy. So how will it have made that money from exporting rice if its port can't function? Then how will the rice get to the ports? Without rail, without roads. So every time they tell you that, oh yes, infrastructure, but the economy, tell them to keep quiet. It's home economics they are practicing. So, for me, they are still also unable to relate rising cost of living globally to basic items that they see. So there is a type of inflation called cost push inflation. The economists will know this better than me. And there is another type called demand pull. Demand pull is increasing money supply, and that responds to interest rate modulation. But cost push will include cost of energy, as we have seen with rising global cost of energy by the war in Ukraine, causing a shortage of supply. The amount of time it takes you to traverse between Enugu to Onitsha, or Abuja to Kano, or Lagos to Ibadan, will certainly impact the cost at which you deliver goods to the market. So when they talk about production and they don't see this, and they don't see how continued importation of petroleum products, which in 16 years they couldn't solve, and which is now almost coming to an end, and they don't see how the refineries, the gas projects relate to the economy, then they do not deserve any opportunity to be in charge of our lives again. They said that they will privatize almost everything that moves. Have you heard that from them? That they will privatize. Go ask them, once they privatize, what has happened to it? I'm not against privatization. But privatization must be handled by those who know the economy. There are social assets and there are commercial assets. And it is only commercial assets really that lend themselves more to successful utilization of a privatization policy. So let us look at their privatization model. And I will come to the discourse and go to the heart of the matter. But I thought that this was such an important forum to have this conversation. That's why I've chosen to start here. They privatized the port in 2006. Go and see what the inefficiencies of that port is adding to the cost of living and the cost of doing business. It hasn't been a very successful model because the concessionaires, in the most basic things, a scanner didn't make that investment. So instead of 5 minutes, because a port is not just a revenue, it's also a security and border check. So it takes 3 hours to physically search one container, but it takes 5 minutes to use a scanner. So that was their privatization model, and it didn't include scanners. And worse still, after the privatization, they left the major road, Apapa Urushoki, that evacuates that port unattended to. And some now say they want to produce without fixing the infrastructure. They got it wrong. As I said, is home economics. The road that helps to distribute goods from that port, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you know the story. It is this same government that is now addressing it. The importance of this introductory part of my intervention is to demonstrate without any shadow of a doubt in any one of you's mind that infrastructure is and will remain the foundation upon which any economy will be built. It is when the infrastructure is in place that policies, regulatory reforms, and all of that can have meaning and impact. If you have to do a 2-hour journey in 10 minutes, in 10 hours, you lose investors. You are not efficient. You will go to another place. So if we don't put this infrastructure in place, the economy is not ready to take off. Happily, I am part of the team that has helped the president achieve this foundation building. And I remain confident that the time the president has spent addressing this hardware problem, if you look at it as an electronic device, the hardware side, this time has been very well spent. And what remains now is to bring in the software. And I have talked about roads, bridges, and all of that. There is one critical part of the infrastructure, and this is the heart of my conversation, the power infrastructure and the power sector. But quite some heavy lifting has been done there. And I'm just going to dimension it by addressing our attention to the Siemens power deal under the Presidential Power Initiative. And what does this thing seek to do? It seeks to address the shortcomings of the privatization that they did. I'm not sure you want to hear this story. Do you? You have time? So in 2013, they privatized the power sector. We know that, right? So after the privatization, all of the assets that used to be owned by government, from generation to transmission to distribution, they left transmission, which is good. I was minister after they privatized, and I've looked at all the models across the world. Substantially, very rarely do you give away all the three sections. Some keep distribution, some keep generation, and privatize the others. But you know the interesting thing about the distribution end? Go and look at those who bought them. You will find some of them in the people the government bailed out with AMCON. So if government has come to bail out somebody from AMCON, you know what AMCON beneficiaries were? People who could not pay their debts. So government bailed them out. Then their own government now sold the asset to somebody who could not pay his own debt and expect him to come and invest money. Do you understand it? Okay. So that's what we inherited. So when you also talk about unemployment, that ministry used to have over 52,000 staff before privatization. When I took office, it was about 700 staff left in the ministry. So essentially, those who acquired the assets did not have the financial muscle to buy the distribution transformers and the substations and to refit the lines that was necessary to bring power to the homes. I will give you two examples of those things. There is a substation in Aba that we upgraded during my time. Just to give you an example, and one in Ejigbo, after Okeafa in Isolo. The distribution transformers there have been installed in the 60s. So those who are familiar with those two areas, look at the growth that has taken place between the 60s and 2017. And it had not been expanded until I became Minister of Power. So this is the kind of rollout that was expected of the DISCOs. You will see places in the urban centers where it used to be residential, it has now become high street. You need to multiply the distribution capacity. Clearly, they didn't have the capacity to do this. But President Buhari's Presidential Power Initiative with the Siemens, this is what it is addressing. So let us be clear, and I'm going to explain to you in high-level summary. So what President Buhari's initiative seeks to do is to deliver in three phases. One, critical and quick win interventions to increase the system's end-to-end operational capacity, currently 5 gigawatt to 7 gigawatt. B, distribution network bottlenecks to enable full use of existing generation and distribution energies and distribution capacities, bringing the system's operational capacity to 11 gigawatt. You will have heard some of the terminology that DISCOs are rejecting power. Did you hear them? This is going to address it. That's the distribution capacity expansion. Then total operational grid capacity to 25 gigawatt in the long term. But what are the components of this thing? Because these are the law objectives. One of the components is that the power initiative under Siemens is building and upgrading 100 substations for distribution, 100. It is also purchasing 11 mobile substations. Now, what do the mobile substations do? When a localized substation is under repairs or maintenance or is down, the mobile one comes in to relieve it, and it is easily connectable. And when it finishes the job, it goes back into storage. So instead of waiting for days when they tell you we have ordered the parts, this is the end of we have ordered the parts, because there will be a mobile substation in relief, and they can be moved around from zone to zone. Then the last part, and this is the juice, the purchase and installation of 2,906 distribution transformers. That's what the DISCOs should have supplied. That power initiative under Siemens, this is what is going to deliver now. Hello? So that is one part of the privatization that was inherited, that is being addressed. Because all I've been talking about is what this government is doing to address the solutions. Because it is clear that its economic model is based on building the infrastructure that allows the economy to operate. So you will also remember in those periods before the APC, you will hear that there were power plants that did not have gas. You will hear that there were power plants that did not have transmission lines to evacuate them. I saw all of them when I was your Minister of Power. At the time, there were 28 power plants in Nigeria. I visited 23 of them. I visited the biggest substations in all the zones, and also the National Control Center in Oshobo. So sometimes when some people came to come and talk about what they have not seen, I just used to chuckle at them. But let me mention to you some specific power plants that had this problem of either transmission or gas or both. Geregu, Omotosho, and Papalato, and even the Aaron Power in Lagos, that our candidate when he was governor started in spite of the opposition. You remember that power plant? So let me start from there. That power plant at that time used to utilize the power meant for Egbe thermal power, because about 6 out of Egbe's turbines had shut down. When Egbe came back on, and this was because of the privatization, that's why I said I don't condemn privatization totally. The generation side did well. They recovered the turbines. They now took ownership of their gas supply program, and in effect it meant that Aaron could not get gas. You remember I told you earlier that one of the infrastructure projects of this government was the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline program. The purpose of that is to expand gas supply. So when that comes on stream, all of this gas is not enough, should be significantly modulated. So in my time as Minister of Power, when you visited those plants, every day we used to get reports. So you will find a power plant that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turbines, but only 2 will be operational because there is no gas to power the 4. This is real, because I got the report every day. So we couldn't go to full installed capacity because of that. These policies are addressing them. They are also addressing the transmission lines. You remember that there are some plants, the power plant in Cross River, I'm trying to remember the name. There is an Ikot-Abasi transmission line that is supposed to evacuate it. So the Siemens deal, again, also captures it. Are you bored? I asked you if you wanted to hear. So this Buhari plan, I'm coming to ASIWAJU, that's why we are here. But you can't build a house from the roof. I've told you about hardware, have you? Let me complete the hardware. Then we'll go to the software. So the distribution and transmission side is also covered under Buhari's deal, the Presidential Power Initiative with Siemens. You know what is on that side? I've told you about 2,906 distribution transformers, not so. I've told us about 100 substations, and I've told us about 11 mobile transformers. Now add this to it, 11,650 kilometers of distribution and transmission lines, new lines nationwide. All of these things are online and you can verify them. So that is as far as that, to cure those problems from their privatization. But that is not all that has happened, so that we should know. There is a policy for mini grids by this government. It is supported by NARC regulation. The regulation is regulation number NARC/R/110 of 17 of 2017. It allows individuals and corporations to generate and distribute power off grid, their own embedded power, without approval if you are generating up to 100 kilowatts, and that's a lot of power. But you need next approval if you generate up to 1 megawatt. But why is this relevant? We hear arguments by them that, oh, when I come, I'm going to decentralize the grid. Why should you have one grid? It's a lie. The grid has been decentralized by policy. Go and take as much power as you want. So my office today, the Ministry of Works and Housing, has 1.5 megawatt of power. We don't use public power again. It's all on our roof, solar. If you go to area market, they have embedded power. President Buhari commissioned that project. If you go to Sabongari market, they have solar and meters in thousands of shops. If you go to Sura market, so the policy has been decentralized. So don't let those home economics people come and fool you. What needs to be done now is to get many more people to acquaint themselves with the policy and begin to take the benefit of what is already in place, because they are going to start again what they do not understand at all. Let me also say that by that decentralization policy, this government also started embedded power in 9 universities. 7 have been completed. The next phase of the 7 are under consideration. So those universities are no longer on the grid. So let nobody come and tell you that, oh, they are going to decentralize the grid. It has been decentralized. Right now, there are a total of 67 off-grid interventions already by the Rural Electrification Agency rolling out. So, as private, as companies, you can benefit from it, and as state governments too. And if I can guess the question on your lips and in your minds, you might then want to ask me, why then are there still power outages? Right? Ask. My response is that there is still work to be done, a lot of work. The deployment of mini-grids, as I've said, is not yet widespread. So I don't know if this center, for example, is connected to the grid, but this center is self-serving. It can have its own power if it wants. So these are the things we want to see. These are the things that happen in other jurisdictions. And some of the things that I spoke to you about, the Presidential Power Initiative to administer distribution and transmission and gas projects, are still work in progress. Many of them are in different stages of completion. So this brings me to why we are here, the ASIWAJU framework for power and energy reform. But before I go there, you see one of our opponents who has condemned in some parts some of what we have done here and said that he's going to Egypt to go and see what is happening there. So when he went to Chatham House, he knew that he can't see the kind of things he says here there. So he said, that Buhari plan, I'm going to stay with it. That's what he said yesterday. So this deal is working. So the ASIWAJU framework, which I call the software, because the hardware is now in place. So let's go to the software, and I will be done. It is well articulated in the tradition of APC, which I started with, identifying issues, proposing solutions. And if you look at pages 30 to 32 of ASIWAJU's action plan for a better Nigeria, titled Renew Hope, you will see the plan for energy. And I will speak to some of the things he discusses there. The first is that he recognizes at page 30 of the plan that the problems cannot be solved overnight. So let nobody come to start promising some fast food, Indomie type results in order to simply catch votes. This plan is very real, that this is not an overnight undertaking, and is honest in that sense. That's at page 30. But it then goes on to say that it will eliminate the losses between generation and distribution by addressing the transmission problems which the current Presidential Power Initiative has started. So he owns all those things I've started talking to you about. It's not coming to experiment. Whatever is working is going to keep. It's in his manifesto. Unlike those who denounce it here and adopt it abroad. And it begins to tell you a difference who is likely to get us there. It's not a short journey, and the more changes you start making, the longer that journey becomes. ASIWAJU connects with the problem of end users relating to the provision of meters and offers support for domestic manufacturing on page 31 of his manifesto. But this connection is more than paper policy. In my own view, it speaks to many things, including ASIWAJU's known commitment for standing with people in need. That's something we know him for. Not so? So it tells those who are victims of estimated billing, because that's what happens to them, that they are not invisible. It is a message that ASIWAJU sees them and offers a solution. It also demonstrates APC's progressive credentials as a party committed to the improvement of the human condition. I always tell people this. When they ask APC, I say, yes, I'm a progressive. And what that means is that everything that we do is targeted towards improving the human condition. Whether it is the road, whether it is the port, whether it is the bridge, whether it is the gas pipeline, all aid at improving the human condition. That's why we wear that badge of progressives. And it's a badge I wear with pride. So the contrasting condition as progressives, saying that we are going to get rid of that problem of metering, and we have started addressing it. You want to hear this? Yes. Okay, when they privatized, they told the DISCOs to supply meters. They now put a policy called capping. Do you remember it? Capping. Don't remember. Let me tell you what it means. It is credit advance payment. Credit advance payment metering implementation by the previous government. And they told you and I, we should go and pay advance money to, you remember it now, to the DISCOs for meters. When I became minister, one of the problems I inherited was thousands of people complaining that DISCOs have collected my money, but they haven't given me meter. You remember now? So when I told President Buhari, he said that's advance fee fraud. Go and cancel it. He said that's advance fee fraud. It is incompatible with our anti-corruption stance. So we stopped it. You know, it sounds like Section 419 of the Criminal Code. I'm sure Ogala will know that when you pay for meter, you don't get. President says it's no longer a government policy. But we didn't just cancel it. We replaced it with another policy. First, we said to consumers, this is no longer a government policy, but we leave you with your individual choice whether you want to advance money to your DISCO or not. It's a matter of personal trust, but it's not our government policy. Our government policy, our regulator, to now say, look, these DISCOs don't have the money. Let us create a new set of entrepreneurs in the power value chain, because it was just GENCO, right, TCN, and DISCOs. Why can't we have meter asset providers? And by policy, we opened up a new business. It is that business that ASIWAJU is saying, domestic manufacturing, I am getting into it, I am going to support it for meters.